The PSP debuted as the most powerful handheld on the market, even coming with its own optical disc drive. And while the handheld didn't have touch controls or dual screens like its competition, the PSP still had a lot going for it, with one of the biggest upsides being how users could hack the device to install some ports from other systems. So in this video, I want to quickly run through a few of these PSP ports and recommend some that you should try out. And so the first port is CaveStory. I'm sure by now most people have heard about this game, as it was a very influential indie title, originally appearing on Windows and later on in the Wii's download shop. Many at the time really wanted this game to release on the PSP, with one coder known as UFZs even going as far as to reverse engineer the first section of the game, which luckily caught the eye of the creator of CaveStory, who was so impressed he gave UFZs direct access to the source code, allowing for the creation of this port. The game overall runs perfectly without slowdown, and the PSP's controls adapt themselves well to the platforming and combat. All the original content is included in this port, and the game is near identical to the official Nicalis version except for the frame rate, which is slightly lower. All in all, the CaveStory port for the PSP is a solid title that looks really good on the system's display, so if you ended up missing this one back in the day, it's still worth giving a go. And so the next port is CupHead. I was very surprised when I discovered that this game existed on the PSP, as I didn't think it would be possible considering how the PS Vita was barely able to run its version of CupHead, yet after doing some more research and trying it out for myself, the game is definitely different from what most would be expecting. For starters, this port is actually a recreation of CupHead, which has been made within Game Maker 8. Another thing is that this game is only one single level, as it's still an ongoing project that is continuously getting updated. The main reason I chose to feature this project in the video is because of its potential. Currently the game looks and plays very similar to the original CupHead, and I think it's pretty impressive that the developer was able to create something like this on the PSP, so while I can't say this port is currently worth playing, it does have a lot of potential, and down the road I can see this becoming much more. And so moving along, the next port is Nazi Zombies Portable. This game is a demake of the Nazi zombie mode from Call of Duty World at War, and still to this day receives updates from the community. The port itself is available on a ton of different handhelds, and it runs using the Quake engine, which has been commonly used for other ports on the PSP. The game itself remains identical to the original Zombies mode, as you're able to buy guns off the wall, shoot zombies, and unlock different doors. In terms of performance, everything runs at a steady FPS, and there are plenty of options within the settings to adjust for those who want to tinker with their graphics. Another thing that is definitely worth noting is that this game includes modded maps, and it allows you to search for them in-game, which is always a nifty feature to have. In general, I'd say Nazi Zombies Portable is a fun port that still has a devoted community around it, so for that very reason alone it's worth trying, especially if you enjoyed Call of Duty Zombies from back in the day. And so the next port is Spelunky. The original Spelunky was created using Game Maker, which is a proprietary tool, leading many to believe that a remake of Spelunky on the PSP would never exist. Yet the user DBeef thought otherwise, and he managed to reuse the existing assets from Spelunky while rewriting the game's code from scratch. The end result of all of this is a near perfect port of Spelunky that runs flawlessly on the PSP and maintains all the charm the original game had. In terms of the gameplay for this port, there really isn't that much to say other than it runs without any hiccups. All in all, it was always a shame that the PSP never got an official release of Spelunky, but luckily this port delivers on bringing the classic game to the handheld, so if you like Spelunky or you've never played it before, this is one of the best ports on the PSP to try out. And so in next we've got Super Mario 64. It seems like nowadays Mario 64 has sort of become what Doom was, as there's always someone out there trying to port it onto a certain handheld, which is fine because it's deemed by many to be one of the best games ever made, and the fact that the PSP has its own port of Mario 64 is pretty impressive. Now sadly, it is worth noting that this port does not run perfectly, and it does experience some frame rate stutters as well as audio glitches. Another thing worth mentioning is that this game does have some minor texture glitches and clipping, but for the most part I didn't have many problems with it. So all in all, while it's a cool port to see on the handheld, there is a fair bit of stuttering and slowdown which can really kill the experience for a new player. Maybe down the road the game will become a little better optimized, but for the meantime it can be a rough experience that some people might not enjoy, so I'd only recommend it if you really like Mario 64 and you're willing to see past its imperfections, as it is is a fun game, and it's cool to see that the PSP even has it. And so up next is Crosscraft. Many might know about the Minecraft port on the PSP, but I doubt most people are aware of Crosscraft. Originally created in 2022, Crosscraft is no different than Minecraft, except for one key area, which is that it allows for users from different platforms to play with one another. Currently, it supports PSP, Vita, 3DS, Linux, and Windows, with PS2 development potentially happening in the future. The game offers both single-player and multiplayer game modes, both of which heavily resemble Minecraft Classic mode, meaning the games are earlier versions of Minecraft with limited items. As of now, the developers of Crosscraft have stated they are taking a break from updating the game, but they do plan on returning down the road, so if you enjoy Minecraft and you want a way to crossplay it with the PSP, this port is an excellent choice. And so the final game is Halo Revamped. Now this port is somewhat similar in design to Zombies Portable, as both were created using the Quake engine, yet each are very different from one another when it comes to actual gameplay. Halo Revamped is very PvP centric, as it offers multiplayer functionality, which can be a lot of fun when playing with friends. Currently there are 3 primary game modes, which are Firefight, SWAT, and Slayer. Each game mode has specific maps that were custom created for it, but again the game lets you freely choose what maps you want to play, so it doesn't really matter. In terms of the controls, Halo Revamped uses all of the PSP's different buttons, and it's honestly an okay experience. It's clear the developers did the best with what they had. Overall, I'd say this game is a good choice for people who want an FPS title to play with their friends, or just something to burn some quick time with. And so that wraps up my list. I wanted to make this video because as a kid I spent a lot of time with my PSP playing through a lot of different modded games, and I felt they deserved some more representation. Although I'm sure I did skip over a few quality PSP ports, so if you have any that I missed, please let me know down in the comments below. Anyways, I want to thank you for watching this far, and to please subscribe if you like my kind of content, and with all that said, I will see you very soon. Take care.